The Film Basement is filmed in sunny West Hartford, Connecticut, in front of a live studio audience.
Welcome to a marvelous episode of The Filmmaker's Basement. I'm Brandon.
I'm Andrew.
And we're going to be talking about some of the movies we saw this week, in addition to playing a little game show later on. So why don't I start off? I don't know, I think we've talked about this a little bit. We're kind of in a weird time where there's not a lot of really interesting movies coming out in theaters. I don't know.
It's funny.
This year,
there's been a lot of movies that I've wanted to go see. With school and work, I just have not had the time to do anything. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I'm almost done with school. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I personally haven't found a ton interested in. So I went through a little bit of a back catalog to see what's kind of come out this year. See if maybe I missed something from like earlier in the year, or something that just wasn't really released in movies. And I found this really strange movie called All Eyes. And initially, it checked off all the boxes for me. So, the synopsis from IMDb is: a disgraced podcast host interviews an eccentric farmer who claims to have a monster living in the woods near his house. So, initially, it sounds kind of interesting to me. It looks low budget, which I'm fine with. You can have good low budget films. But it ended up being like this really weird movie that like, I didn't really hate it, but I didn't really love it. And I feel like I have more reason to hate it than love it, but like, it was still charming in its own weird way. So a little bit of a deeper synopsis is, essentially there's this podcaster, his name's Alan. And he runs this kind of show where crazy people call in and talk about their crazy lives, like things that are following them, like they have conspiracy theories and all that stuff. And he kind of just interviews them like in a podcast host. And we're supposed to believe that this guy has like hundreds of thousands of viewers. People are listening to him all the time, blah, blah, blah. One thing leads to another. And during one of his like live streams, essentially, one of his interview subjects kills someone on the show. Just right in front of you. 5 minutes of the movie, he's dead. So dude loses his job, needs to get back on his feet, and his ex-producer shows up and has this kind of lead to this crazy guy who's saying there's a monster on his property. Not only that, but since he was fired from this podcasting network, the dude has given him $25,000 to come out and investigate. So naturally, the dude's like, heck yeah, let's see where this goes. Could get me back in the podcasting scene, whatever. Which is a little far-fetched to me, but I don't know. I guess this is what people do when you lose your job after someone kills himself on their show. This then leads him to Don, who's this gruff, crazy property owner with kind of like a heart of gold character, who hates Alan but wants to give him a chance because his deceased wife loved his show. So we follow kind of Alan and Don trying to catch this monster on Alan's home and property that has been booby-trapped up to the nines with all kinds of stuff. And as we kind of go through the story, we start realizing that not only is there something more going on here, but there's more to the monster than it seems. So a vibe that I kind of got from this movie is it was kind of similar to An Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, in that on the surface it seems like it's trying to be one movie, but underneath you can tell it's a different movie and a different story they're trying to tell. I don't think this film quite achieved that. I don't think it had the vision or maybe even the budget to kind of get there. Even a little bit of talent, honestly. This movie was lacking in a few areas. What I will say, I did like it in some aspects. I thought it was funny sometimes. There were some very funny moments that came up that work well in the context of the movie. For instance, one of the ways Don hunts the monster is he literally just sits at the edge of his property, looks out into the woods, and just waits. He has this kind of like motion sensor out there. So if anything starts going bonk in the night, he can essentially hear it and he'll go and chase it. Naturally, it ends up more being like fishing, where you're just sitting there for hours and hours on end, and nothing really happens. So we're in one of these moments. Don's asleep, and Alan's kind of talking to himself, being like, I think this dude's insane, but there might be something more going on here, because I've seen some stuff at night, and this seems weird. But, like, for all the craziness that Don is, like, he's kind of got a heart of gold. He seems like a good guy. I mean, even right now, like, he seems so peaceful in his sleep. And then Alan's like, wait a second, is he asleep or is he dead? And you pan over to Alan. Alan's not moving. He's like, wait, did this dude just die on me? What's happening here? So he starts like shaking and he's like, Don, wake up, Don, wake up, Don, wake up. And out of nowhere, Don wakes up, screams, I gotta shit, and runs into the woods. And it's like, okay, I can see what you're going for. Kind of funny, kind of works. There's a lot of like comedy like that where it's like they build up something, it takes a while, thing happens, immediately cut to the next scene. Which it worked in places where it was. I actually like Don. I'll talk a little bit about the writing later on, but I think he was actually decently well-written character for what this movie was. He's very stereotypical, again, like the loner who really doesn't, like people, but it has a heart of gold inside of him, all that. And there were, I liked him. He was all right. Genuinely, one or two very scary moments that kind of surprised me, which is weird because the movie isn't really like a scary movie because it sounds like a horror plot, but that's not really what it is. I saw people kind of relating it to Cabin in the Woods. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that, kind of not like that. It's, again, very weird. And I also kind of like the portrayal of like documentary filmmaking because even though it's a podcast, it has very similar vibes to what a documentary is like. And what I mean by that is a lot of the time you go into a documentary thinking it's going to be about one thing, and then it kind of comes out as something else in the end. And we kind of see that going into this. Like, Alan comes onto this farm thinking the story's going to be about the monster, about this monster and Don's property. But what it ends up being is more about this kind of like, about Don, about how he's just like kind of a nice guy. He lost his wife, and he's kind of had a rough life ever since that happened, and how he's been kind of coping and living since then. And I like that. That was also a very nice touch on the topic of doc filmmaking. And also I like that it becomes a very different movie halfway through. I'm not going to talk about it any more than that. And then we get to the stuff I didn't like. This film was kind of poorly shot. It's giving like low budget, sometimes even student film vibes. And I think this was mainly due to the lighting. The way it is lit kind of feels like someone's first attempt at trying to dramatically light something. Like the scene, like most of the scenes were way too saturated with like blues and reds to the point where it felt incredibly unnatural. And sometimes that can work, but in this context, it felt very off. And as a result, it kind of makes the rest of the shot look weird and off. So that was definitely a big gripe. It felt like they were trying way too hard with that. Additionally, there's a lot of inconsistencies with the plot. And one of the big ones I noticed is when Alan arrives at the farm, like Don has all these rules about like things that he can and can't do. And one of them is he has to pony up his phone. He can't have his phone. He doesn't want anyone knowing where he lives. It's like, all right, crazy dude, makes sense. Halfway through, somehow Alan has his phone back. I don't know where he got it from. It's never mentioned in the story at all, but he just has it back. And at the time, it's like, okay, this is a little bit weird, but how did he get it back? And then as it goes on, you're like, okay, this is a really big plot point that was missed. If this dude didn't have this phone, this would be a very different movie right now.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where it's like, it didn't feel like this was very well, what's the word? Didn't feel like they had somebody coordinating consistency on set. The pacing was also very off. Like the first 15 minutes where Alan has that interview where the dude kills someone on camera and then loses his job and then goes down, it goes by so quick. Like, I timed it. It's like 14:30 from the point where we start the movie to the point where he ends up at Don's farm, which would be fine if the rest of the movie were paced like that, but then it gets incredibly slow once we get to the farm. It slows down a lot. So it really feels like they're rushing. I don't know if they cut some stuff out or what, but it felt incredibly rushed compared to the rest of the movie, and it's very noticeable, which I was not a fan of. Also gets very preachy very preachy at the end. Like, it's like talking at you about what the movie is supposed to be about, which I was also not a fan of. What it's giving is kind of like I said, the unbearable weight of massive talent, where it's like you're kind of supposed to like figure out a little bit what that movie underneath the movie is. Like, what are we actually about? And then it just lays out the whole plot for you like a North Korean film. Like, this is exactly what X, Y, and Z is about. This is what everything meant, blah, 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 blah. And it just feels like they kind of wasted whatever they had going into that ending. It's like, okay, I think I could have been more behind this, and maybe you'd gone with a little bit of the artsier ending, where it's like you don't really explain as much, but you kind of go into your finale of sorts. But they put all the writing on the wall, and it just feels bad. They also do that a number of times throughout the rest of the film, too, where they'll just explain exactly what is happening in the movie at this point. And it's like, I'm not dumb. I know what's happening in the movie. You don't have to explain it to me. There was one more quick thing that I wanted to bring up. Oh, going back to the lack of the inconsistencies. Another one of the big ones I noticed was Alan, who was supposed to be this professional podcaster who's been podcasting for all these years, has no idea how to point a microphone at someone. It's just like, because when he's on the farm with Don, he has like a cardioid microphone in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
But like he's just pointing it wherever. Sometimes it's not even at Don himself while he's talking. It's like off the court. It's all over the place. It makes no sense whatsoever. So overall, again, I have all these complaints about it, but I didn't hate the movie, and I don't know if it was just because like maybe Don was such a redeemable character that I just enjoyed watching him on screen. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's because those funny moments kind of made up for it, or like the mid-movie kind of like turn. I don't know what it was, but I didn't come out of it hating it. I can't recommend it, I don't think, because I don't think it was that good, but I don't regret watching it, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, it doesn't feel like I wasted an hour and a half. So, yeah, that's all I got really here.
All right. So, like I said, I've been really busy, so I haven't really been able to go to the movies for a little while. But there have been movies that I wanted to go see that I haven't heard good things about, which is, we'll get to that. But something that came out earlier this year, kind of similar to what Brandon did. Although I didn't watch it recently, I did watch it really late. I watched it like 2 months after it came out, but I ended up watching it in like one night. It's a TV series. It's called Ms. Marvel. I don't know if you're familiar with Disney Plus. We promote it consistently on this program. But Ms. Marvel, or Kamala, is a superhero fan with an imagination, particularly when it comes to Captain Marvel. Kamala feels like she doesn't fit in a school and sometimes even at home. That is until she gets superpowers like the hero she looks up to. Pretty interesting show. It's only 6 episodes, so it sets up. There's one thing about the Marvel universe right now, and that is the TV shows are a lot better than the movies they've been putting out, which hopefully won't continue, because while the TV shows are good, I want the movies to be also good. And I mean, they're good. They're just not. Ever since Endgame, it's just been like, because we're comparing all of these Marvel movies to the previous phase or the previous saga, and we're just like, it's just not as good. And it's a growing pain kind of thing with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because they're introducing an entire new saga now that the Infinity Saga is over. So this was cool though, because we get our first look at Kamala Khan, which is a Middle Eastern born superhero, which we haven't seen yet. Kind of similar to Miss, or what was her name? America Chavez.
No idea.
From Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. That character, who was the first Hispanic superhero, right? So, we're getting a lot of firsts, which is pretty cool to see a bunch of stuff. And she plays a really good role. She does the character really well. The show is okay. It has a lot of like social and political ties to it, just because it's a Muslim superhero. So like there's a scene where the U.S. government is looking for Kamala Khan, and they walk into her mosque, and basically they're just like, we need to search for this person, and they're just like, you're just in here because we're Arab or Muslim, and they're just like, no. And it's like, it's kind of like that kind of storytelling, I guess, or like political correctness. But it was really weird because Kamala Khan is supposed to be an Inhuman, and that's what she is in the comic book. She's an Inhuman. She gets her powers from the Terrigen Mist. If anyone's not familiar with Terrigen Mist, it's just something that makes people like a mutant kind of thing without actually having the mutant gene. But in this show, since the MCU has already had a Terrigen Mist type of storyline with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they couldn't really go back to it. So they made, and this is a spoiler for anyone who hasn't watched it, but it came out in June, so, you know, your fault. They made Miss Marvel a mutant by saying at the end of the show, they looked at her genetic code and were just like, your genetic code, there's a mutation. And they say that pretty much exactly, and that kind of opens the door for the Marvel Cinematic Universe to introduce mutants, which is really cool because that's what we've been waiting for like ever now. And you know, they just announced that they're doing Fantastic Four in Phase 6 or something, and you know, it's all these characters that we've been wanting them to put in the universe for so long, and then we're finally getting to that point. It's just taking a really long time. Like, they announced the next Avengers movies, and the next Avengers movies aren't coming out until 2024. Wow. Which is a really long time from in between the last Avengers movie that we got. But I think they're coming out in the same year, or they're coming out within 6 months of each other. It's like one of those two things. That's like the next two Avengers movies. They're coming out either like within 6 months of each other or within a year. It was really cool to see that. So, you know, we're finally getting set up, you know, after, you know, they finally, you know, announced. I think they announced all this at San Diego Comic-Con a couple of months ago, where they were like, hey, here's all the new Marvel properties we're working on, and they announced movies up until 2024. So, you know, we're getting there, and we'll get there eventually. But, you know, it's just taking forever, and I'm ready to, like, I've said this before, like, I want to see the next team-up movie. Like, we're getting a bunch of movies with, a couple of characters thrown in, like, as, like, side cameos and stuff. It's just, like, there's not been, like, a movie where everyone's been teamed up together, and I don't think we're gonna see that for a while. So we'll see. The next one coming out, the next Marvel movie coming out, is Black Panther in November. So
okay,
we'll definitely only see Black Panther characters in that movie, but you know, we'll see what next year brings.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So would you recommend Miss Marvel?
Yeah, I would. Just because if you're a Marvel fan, obviously you've probably already watched it. If you're not a Marvel fan, it was a good show. Like I said, it's only 6 episodes. If you're not familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you might not understand the show just because it takes place after the events of Endgame. There's a lot of like spoken tie-ins to the Marvel Universe. Being that she's a really big fan of Captain Marvel and like Iron Man and everything. So you may not understand all the references, but it's good either way. So
So like a WandaVision, essentially, that you could kind of get into maybe.
Yeah, so I would say the only show that I would say from Marvel that they've done so far that doesn't tie into the pre-existing story was Moon Knight. So Moon Knight doesn't really tie in to any Marvel Avengers stuff. So if you're not familiar with any Marvel and you want to watch like a Marvel TV show, you want to get like see if you can get into it, I would watch Moon Knight. I don't think I've talked about Moon Knight yet.
I don't
maybe
you have.
I don't think so. That was good too. That was for another day. But yeah. So, but you know, this one, WandaVision, Loki, Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Soldier, they all tie in, and She-Hulk, which is out now. They all tie into previous movies, so you may not understand the references, or like where people are like there's a quote in the new She-Hulk where Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is talking to She-Hulk, and he says, you know, they're talking about his battle with Emil Blonsky, and he says, you know, hey, you know, it's water under the bridge now. I'm a completely different person, literally, which, I mean, if you're not familiar, they changed actors after that movie. So like they threw in that line that was like, hey, I'm a completely different person now, literally. And it's kind of like one of those lines where it's just like, ha, like this is breaking the fourth wall kind of thing of like the actor change, which is, you know, I understood, but other people may not. So.
Okay. Well, always good to hear what's going on Disney Plus.
Yeah, not a sponsor, not a hashtag, not an ad.
Not an ad. Okay, Andrew, before we move on to our next segment, I have to know, did you scroll down the page to Pilot Wings by any chance?
Yeah.
God damn it. Yep. Okay, so we can't do Pilot Wings this week, so I was doing this a little last minute, and I forgot to blank out all the answers. Again.
Yeah. I was like, why aren't they spaced out? Oh.
Yeah, that's on me entirely. So, we'll just have a little bit of a shorter one this week. Why don't we just go into the movies on it that are coming out soon that we're interested in?
Let's talk, because we haven't recorded in a while, and so we haven't really talked about any of the movies that have come out recently. So I don't know why IMDb changed everything, I can't find anything at all.
Yeah.
I guess browse by genre. No,
I should have posted a link to it in the Google Doc. It should be under calendar.
It's release calendar, but I'm looking for current movies that are out right now. So that would be top box office, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. I mean, it only gives me 10. It's really funny. Spider-Man No Way Home is on here
really?
because they re-released Spider-Man No Way Home. It was an extended cut. But so there's a movie that's out called Beast that I've been wanting to go see.
Yeah, the Idris Elba one, right?
Yeah, and I heard real bad things about it.
I was seeing the same.
It's only got a 5.7 on IMDb, which is a little upsetting, and it's also only like 90 minutes long. It's really short. But I was interested to see it, and I don't know if I'm going to or not. I may just wait.
Ooh, bless.
Thank you for it to be out. Did you hear me?
No, but I saw the movement.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I muted myself. I wanted to go see this, and I still might, or I just might wait until it's like on HBO or something and just watch it later. So, you know, other than that, I mean, you're right. There's like not really else. There's a movie called Barbarian that I guess was the top box office winner this week at 10.5 million.
About this,
and I saw the trailers for it. It's weird. Like a horror movie.
It reads like a horror movie.
No, it is. Like, I've seen the trailer. It's definitely a horror movie.
Yeah. A young woman traveling to Detroit for a job interview books a rental home, but when she arrives late at night, she discovers that the house is double booked and a strange man is staying there. Against her better judgment, she decides to spend the evening, but soon discovers there's a lot more to fear than just the unexpected house guest. Which is like, okay, could be interesting.
Yeah, and there was another movie that I wanted to see, but the week that it came out, there was one showtime for the week, and I was like, why is this movie not have more showtimes? And I guess it didn't really do well in the box office. It's called Breaking. It's a movie that stars John Boyega. It's about a true story about a Marine war veteran who faces mental health and emotional challenges when he tries to reintegrate back into civilian life.
I can see why you'd want to watch this.
Basically what happens, and this is a true story. This Marine who tried to come back after being deployed and everything, attempts to rob a bank, and then is basically holding hostage the bank tellers, and is in a standoff with police. And this happened like recently too. It was like 2014, 2015 that this happened. It happened in Georgia, I think. So, you know, I wanted to see it, but like I said, it only had one like showing, and I was like, what, why? And you know, so and this kind of goes along with Jimmy's film that he's finishing up right now, Police 3, about soldier suicide. So like it's kind of like one of those things where it kind of ties to like what we're doing at Name Pending Productions. So you know, I was interested to see it and talk about it, and hopefully I still can, like, soon.
Okay, hopefully you can. I know you're also interested in seeing Clerks 3, which is released recently. I think yesterday, actually.
Yeah, maybe. There is another one that I'm interested in seeing.
Is it Minions Rise of Gru?
No, my kids have already seen that, so... No, it's something that you might want to see, and apparently it got, like, huge reviews and huge, like a standing ovation. It's called The Whale. It's a story. It's Brandon Fraser, who stars. A reclusive English teacher living with severe obesity attempts to reconnect with his estranged teenage daughter for one last chance at redemption.
Okay.
This movie apparently got, like, I don't know if it was at Sundance or like some film festival that it was premiered at. Brandon Fraser got like a 10-minute standing ovation after this movie.
Wow.
So like, apparently this movie like is, you know, he does really well in the film. So I was kind of interested in seeing that. I just don't know where it would be showing. So
that might be a release to streaming kind of movie.
Maybe.
Honestly,
I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, but that sounds super good, especially with, because I know Brandon Fraser was making his return. People were all about that.
Yep.
But I didn't realize it was. That sounds like a very interesting role for him to be in. Yeah, I mean, besides that, I haven't really seen all that much I'm interested in here. There's one maybe, but I don't know, it doesn't look very good. Orphan First Kill. After escaping from an Estonian psychiatric facility, Esther travels through America by impersonating the missing daughter of a wealthy family. Yet an unexpected twist arises that pits her against a mother who will protect her family at any cost. Like, maybe watchable, but I don't know. I don't like the vibes I'm getting from it.
Is that like next week?
I think it might be
out. What was it called?
Orphan First Kill.
Yeah, that's out. That's
August 19th. Which again, it's like I don't really care all that much about seeing it.
Yeah, so movies that aren't out yet. There's one that I've seen trailers for that I'm like, this movie looks really good. And I love a good thriller, and it looks like a thriller. But it's gotten so much backlash over the last few weeks.
Really? What's the movie?
It's called Don't Worry, Darling. It's a movie that was directed by Olivia Wilde that stars Harry Styles and Chris Pine. And there's apparently a lot of beef between Chris Pine and Harry Styles, but also Olivia Wilde and the girl who plays Yelena in the Marvel Universe, whose name escapes me.
I mean, it seems like Olivia Wilde has beef with everyone, because I heard she had beef with Shia LaBeouf over this movie. Like
Florence Pugh, Shia LaBeouf was on set for this movie, and he was so difficult to work with that she fired him. He was the character who Harry Styles plays. So he was Harry Styles was not originally in this movie, and it was originally Shia LaBeouf. But yeah, this movie looks so interesting, and it looks really good as a thriller, but like apparently it's terrible, and like there's a lot of backlash with this movie, and it comes out next week, so like the 23rd. So what's that? Next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday. So I don't know. I'll probably still go see it just because, like, you know, it's something to go see.
To watch.
Yeah.
You know, I was incorrect. There is actually one movie I'm kind of interested in seeing, just because it looks like it might be funny. It's called See How They Run. In West End of 1950s London, plans for a movie version of a smash hit play come to an abrupt halt after a pivotal member of the crew is murdered. The trailers I saw for it were giving, like, British comedy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, kind of like a very dry comedy, which I could get behind if it's funny enough.
I just clicked on it and I saw it, and I thought I saw Christian Bale, which that is not Christian Bale.
Mm-hmm.
But that movie reminded me of the movie that Christian Bale's in upcoming called Amsterdam, which comes out in October.
Okay.
Which the cast for that is like incredible. It's Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, Anya Taylor-Joy, Robert De Niro, Zoe Saldana, Michael Shannon, Timothy Olyphant, Rami Malek, Mike Myers, Taylor Swift, like Chris Rock. This movie has everyone in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's like that American Dream movie that Bradley Cooper and Amy Adams were in that had a bunch of like superstar actors in. So I don't know. We're getting to that point where we're getting to the nitty gritty of like movies that are coming out. There's like one movie a week or maybe two that come out in 1 week that I'm like, oh, I gotta go see that.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know. Yeah, hopefully we start picking back up again.
You didn't see that movie Pearl? You haven't seen trailers for that? Did you see X? Did you see the movie X?
Oh no, because I heard it wasn't that good, honestly.
So
Apparently it wasn't that great.
This is the origin story for X.
That came out like 5 months ago?
Yeah, yeah. They pushed. I don't know if they filmed them both at the same time or what, but
they must have really thought
how
X
the story of Pearl became the vicious killer scene in X.
They must have really thought X was going to be a smash hit. This was going out this quickly. Wow.
Well, it's what A24 does those movies?
Yeah, they do.
So
I didn't think it'd be that quick though. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, and then you've got the Bowie movie coming out.
Yeah,
Moon Age Daydream, which if you like musical movies or movies about musical talents. So
yeah, all right.
Oh, what? There is one movie that I want to talk about because I don't know when it comes out, but I am going to watch it, and if you want to talk about it together, we can. It's coming out on Roku. It's a Roku original movie, and it releases on November 4th, so we're a little bit away from it. It's called Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Oh, the one with what's his name? Daniel Radcliffe.
It's Daniel Radcliffe plays Weird Al. I can't wait for that movie. So the new trailer for it released, and the first trailer I thought, oh, we're getting a retrospect on Weird Al Yankovic. That's really cool. I really want to see that. And then we get the second trailer, and the second trailer, it's a movie about Weird Al's life, but it's a spoof movie about the musical movies that have been releasing. So while Weird Al does spoofs of music, he's also spoofing like who's in there? Evan Rachel Wood plays Madonna in this movie, and like she plays Madonna as Weird Al Yankovic's love interest, and I'm like, I don't think that really happened. So like I'm pretty sure that this is just a movie about like spoofing historically accurate like musical movies, but it's done Weird Al style. I'm very excited.
Check one thing about this movie just to make sure this was in fact the case. I'm so glad he is actually a writer on this movie because if he was not, I would be so disappointed.
And he's in the movie. He's shown in one of the trailers. He's like one of the producers. You see him for like a split second. You're like, is that Weird Al with like a high and tight haircut that's like not like crazy curls? And you're just like, it is Weird Al. It's crazy.
Okay, we'll have to probably do a double feature on that.
We'll probably do a double one for that because it's a Roku original. I don't know what that means. I don't know what I have to download for that. Like if there's a Roku app that I download, but if I have to pay for it, I'm probably gonna do that.
We will make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, why don't we close out for this week? Andrew, do you have anything you would like to plug?
Nope.
And I don't have anything I'd like to plug either. Just because
we already plugged.
We plugged some stuff already. So
we already plugged some stuff. So
yeah, I mean, thank y'all for listening to the Filmmaker's Basement. I'm Brandon.
I'm Andrew.
And we will see y'all next week.